Hi, my name is Hafiz. I'm a government accounts lead with AWS for public sector in Malaysia. This session is on the best practices in AWS Cloud Cost Optimization. In this session, I look forward to share a range of ways you can understand, manage, and optimize your AWS costs when moving to AWS. So this is especially important as you start moving and running more and more workloads on AWS. So why are we talking about cost optimization? Well, cloud presents an opportunity for us to gain more at the lowest cost possible. So optimizing the cost of our AWS cloud consumption is really important as we have more and more workloads running on AWS. However, research shows that the number one priority in 2019 cloud initiatives is all around cloud cost optimization. Why is that so? As you can see here, 65% of customers efficiently spend on cloud. The remaining 35% did not optimize their cloud spend, and because of that, $10 billion is wasted annually. So what do we mean by wasted spend? It can be paying for services that are not fully utilized, or it can be not subscribing to the right pricing plan that AWS has to offer, or you don't it can be because we are not using enough automation to help us monitor our cloud spend. So how do we avoid this? To avoid this, we need to understand what are the common mistakes that we make that resulted in a high AWS cloud cost charges. So let's take a look at the top 5 mistakes that customers tend to make that drive up their cloud cost. First is what we call orphaned resources. So this is quite common, especially when you have a dev and test environment. In a dev and test environment, we do not run the applications 24 by 7. So what we normally do is that we will shut down the application servers when we are not using dev and test or development testing, right? However, when we actually shut down those compute instances or application servers, we tend to leave the storage or database running. And this storage and database workload continue to run even after we shut down the compute instances or the application servers. As a result, these database and storage become what we call orphaned resources. And they will continue running. And because they continue running, they will continue incur charges and unnecessarily. So without proper monitoring tools, these orphaned resources can live on forever and negatively affecting your overall cloud costs. So that's the first one. The second is what we call misconfigured storage resources. Another common mistake when customers allocate warm or cold storage into high performing data storage in AWS. The fact is that in AWS, there are many storage options and tiers that you can use based on your data type and your data usage. So right sizing this storage by data type and usage can reduce your cost by up to 50%. So for example, frequently accessed data, store it on S3 standard. That's because that's the best storage tier for a frequently accessed data. But for archiving, best to use S3 Glacier because it costs a lot lower than standard S3. And for archiving, for data that belongs under archiving, you don't need to have frequent access to those data. So S3 Glacier can really help you save a lot of costs around storage alone. The third one is what we call over provision of resources. So this is especially true because we are used to what we call the on-premise data center situation where we tend to over-provision servers so that those servers will have a capacity for a spike in traffic. But this is not the way when we do things in cloud. When it comes to using AWS, we always recommend that you use our auto-scaling feature. With auto-scaling, you can scale up or down automatically anytime as needed on demand. Right? So always use auto scale instead of over provision resources. Another way to avoid over provision of resources is by doing what we call right sizing. If you use AWS Cost Explorer, you will be able to see what are your underutilized and idle instances. that can be right-sized. Right-sizing is the process of matching your compute instances and sizes to the performance and capacity requirements. For example, if your applications just need two CPU machines or instances, then it's best to provision two CPU instances. That's what we mean by right sizing. So with right sizing, AWS customers can see up to 36% in cost savings. The fourth common mistake is what we call incorrect pricing plan. So what is that all about? This is because many organizations do not use the cloud pricing plan that AWS has to offer. uh, a lot of us actually tend to go with the default pricing plan, which is on demand. The fact is that if you have a steady state workload, let's say accounting system or an HR system, it's best to actually use what we call reserve instance pricing plan rather than on demand, because reserve instance can give you up to 40% of savings over off demand over on demand pricing. If you have applications that can be turned on and off from time to time, then best is to use spot instances, which is actually a model that we introduced to allow you to request a spare Amazon EC2 computing capacity. Spot instance can actually save you up to 90% of the on-demand price. Right, so just pricing plan, right? Using the pricing plan alone can really help you drive a lot of cost savings. The fifth one is overlooking newer technologies. As you know, AWS, we constantly come up with new features and launch new innovative services. There are times where these new technologies also present you an opportunity to actually optimize your cloud costs further. A good example is Amazon EC2 instances that was recently launched using AWS Graviton family of CPUs using an ARM technology and architecture. All right, so these new instances with Graviton family can deliver up to 40% better price performance for workloads such as application servers, microservices, video recording, video encoding, high performance computing, and even open source database and in-memory caches. So these are the 5 common mistakes that we see that actually tend to drive customers' AWS cloud cost. So the question now is that how do we actually manage our costs further? So managing cloud costs is not just about subscribing to right pricing plan. It's not just about using AWS Autoscale to avoid overprovision. We need to manage cloud costs holistically. And what do we mean by that? We need to put in place a practice that enables us to manage, optimize, and plan costs as we grow our usage and scale on AWS. So first, we need to put a practice around measurement and accountability. So this is where we focus on establishing cost visibility, tracking, and monitoring our organization cloud spend. How do we do this? Well, we need to create cost structure for the resources being deployed on AWS. And to do this, use AWS organization, where you can create multiple accounts under your AWS organization. So these accounts can belong to individual departments or projects, depending on how you want to track your AWS usage. If you want to track and monitor AWS usage or cost by department, then you create an AWS account for that particular department. If you want to track your AWS usage and cost by project, then you create an account uh, create an account for that project. Alternatively, you can also use what we call cost allocation tags. You can tag resources by application name, cost center, and so on. Right? This will give you a more visibility on the relationship between AWS costs and the workloads, projects, or departments that incur the spend. Right? So for example, if you want to track how much accounting department consumption is like when it comes to AWS Cloud, then you can create an account for accounting department, or you can create resources and tag that to accounting department using cost allocation tag. So that's how we do measurement and accountability. Other than creating cost visibility, we also need to put in place a practice of using a cost optimization practice. So how do we achieve cost optimization? First of all, always leverage the elasticity that is provided by AWS. A good example is use auto scaling. where you can actually ensure that workloads scale when needed and don't cost a thing otherwise. This will certainly avoid over provision situation. When it comes to pricing, use RI or reserve instance or spot pricing model, whichever that suits your workload requirements. If you have a steady state workload, then reserve instance or savings plan will give you a better price, a better cost uh, versus on demand. In certain cases, it can actually save up to 72% over off on demand price. For applications that are fault tolerant or stateless, you can use spot instances, which will give you 90% discount off on demand pricing. So choosing the right pricing model is really important as part of your cost optimization practice. So manage resources in a cost-efficient manner by right-sizing, modernizing, and terminating underutilized or idle resources is really, really key in cost optimization. The third thing is on planning and forecasting, which focuses on setting expectations, improving business and financial predictability. This is where using Explorer really helps. We have capabilities such as budgeting that alert you if your AWS consumption reach a certain budget that you set. We can also help you with forecasting, where you can use Cost Explorer to forecast what will be your AWS spend by end of the month based on your current usage pattern. So Cost Explorer is really, really helpful when it comes to planning and forecasting your use of AWS. Finally, you need to have people who specializes on the cloud financial operations, or what we call FinOps, right? So this is to ensure that cost optimization is not a one-time practice. It's not a yearly thing. It's a continuous operation. To ensure that the FinOps team have the right skill to manage cloud costs, AWS has recently introduced a new training called AWS Cloud Financial Management for Builders, which is specifically designed for people who are responsible for AWS cost optimization. Okay, so let's look at what are the tools and services that you have to optimize your AWS costs. First is Trusted Advisor. Trusted Advisor provide cost optimization report that checks idle and underutilized instances. So what happens is that this tool gives recommendations on what to do with those underutilized and idle instances or services. That can really help you to actually optimize your cost further. Cost Explorer is a powerful tool that we have. It's a tool that gives you that gives you a dashboard on your AWS cost and usage. It also provides recommendations on optimizing your cost further by purchasing the right pricing plan. And this recommendation is actually based on your usage data over the last 30 to 60 days. So Customer Cost Explorer also provide right size recommendations for underutilized and idle instances. So for organizations with multiple accounts, you are able to view usage reports for each of those individual accounts. Let's say you create AWS account for each project in your organization. Then using Cost Explorer, you will be able to view and dive deep on the AWS usage for each of those particular for each of those projects that you actually registered in AWS Cost Explorer. AWS Budget is a powerful tool that allows you to set a budget that alerts you when you exceed or forecast to exceed your budgeted cost or usage amount. So this will certainly help you proactively monitor your AWS usage based on your budgeted cost. If you set a budget of 2,000, when the system forecast that you will hit that 2000 US dollar worth of budget, it will send you an alert. So that's how powerful AWS budget is. It gives you a proactive alert that tells you that you are that you are exceeding your usage or forecast usage of AWS. For customers who are planning to migrate to AWS, we provide a migration evaluator tool. So this is a tool that can perform inventory discovery through agentless collector. The collected data will then be used to provide a cost modeling analysis that shows potential savings when you migrate to AWS. Because in most cases, when you want to migrate to the cloud, we do not recommend you to migrate as is. We are using this tool, it will help you to actually right size your environment on AWS. So instead of you migrate all the servers that you have, you just migrate servers that are actively in use, and even and leave behind the one that are idle or not running when we run through this agentless collector. So these are the cost optimization tools that are provided by AWS to enable you to more efficiently manage your AWS cost and usage amount. So when it comes to cost optimization, it's best to look for low-hanging fruit. For example, perform right sizing of your servers even before you migrate to the cloud. We have an AWS migration evaluator tool that can determine what to migrate and what not to migrate. For example, the tool will tell you how many servers that you have in your environment today that are idle or zombie. The tool will not recommend you to actually migrate these servers to AWS because it's going to be a complete wastage. For storage, look for ways to store data based on data access patterns, right? For example, data access patterns in this case can be frequent access and infrequent access. Data that don't need to be accessed frequently is best stored in storage class designed for infrequent access. And we have many options and storage tiers that you can actually pick and choose to actually store data based on data access patterns, whether it's frequent or infrequent access. Another powerful tool is what we call scheduling. AWS Instance Scheduling is a solution that enable you to easily configure custom start and stop for your Amazon EC2 and RDS instances. So this is especially true if you have environment that do not need to run 24/7. So you use scheduler to actually auto start and stop these services when during a certain time of the day. By using scheduler, you have the ability, you have the potential to save up to 70% compared to running all these instances 24 hours a day. For steady state application, you need to start looking to the different pricing option that we have, such as savings plan or reserve instance, which can provide you with significant discount. In certain cases, it can be up to 72% compared to on-demand instance pricing. Another low-hanging fruit will be to actually perform right sizing of your production environment using AWS Cost Explorer. Of course, the best is to build a cost awareness to your cloud architecture by using serverless technology and auto scaling. If you have batch workload, then it's best to use sports instance where AWS provide up to 90% discount for unused capacity. So these are the low-hanging fruits that you can actually target or go after as part of your cost optimization. Do right sizing, make sure that you have the right storage tier for based on the right data access pattern. Use scheduler to start and stop to configure auto start and stop of your services, in this case EC2 and RDS, based on the profile of your workload, especially for dev and test environment where you do need to run 24/7. So you may want to have an use scheduler to actually start your servers early in the morning and shut down the servers maybe uh, close to midnight. So that will avoid the dev and test servers to run 24/7. Use the right pricing options such as savings plan or reserve instance for steady state applications. And if you have applications that are suitable to use spot instant, please go ahead and use spot instance because that will give you the best discount compared to all other pricing plan that we have. And if you're already running on production, always go into Customer Explorer to perform right sizing because Explorer will give you the report on what are your underutilized and idle instances, and that will definitely help you to optimize your cost further. So these are examples of cost optimization best practice. Going with savings plan or opting for savings plan for steady state applications will provide savings up to 72%. So you can use Cost Explorer to view savings plan recommendations based on your actual application's usage data. Right? Use scheduler to automate start and shutdown of non-production instances. This is very important because non-production instances do not need to run 24/7. By using scheduler to automate start and shutdown of non-production instances, you can lower the cost up to 70 to 70%. The other thing is about right sizing. Right size your instance based on actual workload requirements. If your applications just need 2 CPU servers, then just provision a 2 CPU server. There is no need to provision 4 CPU servers. Of course, you can use auto scale if you need more than 2 CPU capacity when the traffic spike goes up, right? By right sizing, you can potentially reduce cost by 50%. Again, AWS Cost Explorer will give you recommendation on the right size recommendation required. You can also potentially reduce cost by 10% by moving to instances with newer technologies such as AWS AMS and Graviton processors. We constantly update all these capabilities of our new processors and all that on the website. So be sure to tune in and go and look into our cost optimization blog to really see what are the kind of cost savings recommendation that we always update from time to time. For customers who are planning to quantify potential savings after migrating to AWS, they can use a tool that we provide for free called AWS Migration Evaluator. So this is a tool that performs inventory discovery of your current IT environment. So based on the data collected, the tool will provide in-depth analysis on how you can cut costs by migrating to AWS. For example, based on the usage data, your current usage data, the tool will propose right-size instances to run on cloud. You may have server that is running on 8 CPU today. But when we run the tool, the actual usage data only shows that you only use 4 CPU at a time. So what the tool will recommend is that if you want to move to AWS, instead of you provision an 8 CPU server, the tool will recommend you to actually provision a 4 CPU server instead. So that is one way to cut costs by using migration evaluator tool. So the good thing about the tool is that it will also reveal idle and zombie servers in your data center or in your IT environment today. And we will definitely not recommending migrating these idle and zombie servers as part of your migration plan. And this will further reduce the cost. What are zombie servers, by the way? Zombie servers are servers that are turned on and do nothing throughout the discovery period that we perform on your current IT environment. All right, so as you can see here, the total cost of ownership or TCO on AWS will reduce further as we start to optimize further. Um, so what this chart shows that rehosting or lift and shift your current apps to AWS will definitely show some cost savings. However, performing right sizing, improving elasticity such as using auto scale, optimize your storage can further reduce the total cost of ownership on AWS. The most optimized situation is when you start to build cost awareness to your cloud architecture, such as start to use technologies such as managed services, serverless, and so on. The economic case improves through optimization as you actually use more and more cost optimization capabilities that AWS has to offer, such as serverless, auto scale, and so on. So these are some of the customers that actually optimize their AWS costs. And for example, ST Unitas, they actually went with a reserve instance. When they went with reserve instance over on-demand pricing, they have managed to cut 60% of their AWS cloud expenses. King County, for example, saved 200,000 US dollars just by modernizing their storage on AWS. As we can see here, these customers optimize their AWS spend by using the right pricing options, and they also use the right storage option. And these are just very basic example of how the kind of things that they do to actually optimize their cost further on AWS. So to dive deeper on the tools and approach covered in this session, please visit these sites and webinars. These are resources that provide guidance on how to optimize your AWS costs using range of methods that we've talked about just now, such as Cost Explorer, using AWS budgets, and of course, how to choose your right pricing plan using Cost Explorer and Trusted Advisor. We even have a webinar that talk about well-architected framework to help you optimize your cost further when running on AWS. With that, I would like to thank you so much for joining this session. I really hope that you find this session useful. Thank you.